Let's do this thing. I am Gabe Morency. We're kicking it live in New Orleans. Countdown to kickoff is on, and we're getting fired up. We're still days away from the big game, but I've been really looking forward to throwing it down with the man that's sitting beside me right now, former second pick in the NFL draft, Washington State Cougar freaking legend, Ryan Leaf steps up and in with us. Ryan, I've seen you around Media Row for a couple of years, man. I've always wanted to get you on. It's never really happened, but I'm fired up to have you here.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we missed last year. We had our baby last year, like at Thanksgiving, and so we stayed home for the Super Bowl, like for the first time since Super Bowl 50. So we're back for a couple days doing some work with Sirius, and then this is just a great opportunity to, kind of showcase what we're doing and trying to be of service.
One thing I know about you too, you just love the sport of football, don't you?
I do.
Love talking to football players. You were at the Senior Bowl last week. You're here at the Super Bowl right now. A lot of guys, when they're away from the game, they're done. You just love the sport, don't you?
Well, I do. I love football. It gave me everything, and I think for the longest time it was pretty toxic for me, the way I viewed it, when in reality football was never the problem. I was the problem, And so once I got okay with myself and liked who I saw in the mirror, football came back to me in the absolute greatest way. I get to be an analyst, and then I get to call games, and I think that's my favorite thing to do is call NFL games, and I had a lot of fun doing that in the last couple of years.
Now you've been through a lot, obviously, and I see you defending current players online, and there's never been a lower of the low than now, is there, Ryan? As far as the vitriol is concerned, as far as just people getting viciously attacked online,
yeah.
or something you responded to, guys sitting on their couch like me telling Josh Allen should have done this, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I know my place. I give picks, Ryan. I give my opinion on the game. I give picks. I'm not going to tell Josh Allen you should have looked left, you should have went right. How much does this stuff bother you?
It doesn't really bother me. I'm for me, that's all kind of a bit. I'm funny.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of other people maybe think I'm funny. But I think I'm funny. And
you've been passionate about defending your program in Washington State as well.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about that. It cost me my job at ESPN, being that passionate about it. And I'm more than happy that was the case. There's something about loyalty these days that just doesn't exist. Also, listen, for the last 10 years, I think you've probably gotten a pretty good idea who I am. I've told everybody and shown everybody my scars. I've owned up to everything I've done and will continue to do so when I mess up. It's just got nothing to hide, And so when you don't have that, when you don't got nothing to lose in that mindset, you're okay to speak truth to power and just be honest, And people can listen or they don't. A lot of times I'm just confused at why people actually listen to me, but it's funny.
Well, I'd rather listen to somebody that has experience, that has life experience, than somebody that hasn't been there and done that before. When you were at the Senior Bowl, did anybody lean on you going through the draft process? Did you share any experiences I saw you with Riley Leonard, did you share any experiences saying, tune out the outside noise, don't worry what people are saying about you? How did you interact with the QBs at the Senior Bowl?
Well, this is something that Jim Nagy and I have been trying to get into place for a few years now, to schedule, where I would come in and speak to the entire two teams. And we finally were able to make it work this year, especially with the Super Bowl here. We could just drive right over.
Southern swing, right?
Yeah, we drove right over from Mobile, and it was powerful. What was even more powerful is before I started speaking, I asked for a show of hands of how many had heard my talk before, and about a third to half of the room raised their hand. And I've been doing this for 7 years now. Nick Saban was the first coach to have me come speak to his team. And I've been in front of so many programs now that this is the result. There's individuals in that room that have heard it before. And
that really says something, actually, Ryan, too, because a lot of football players don't know other football players or don't care.
Yeah.
I heard a story that Cam Newton didn't know who Boomer Esiason was. Yeah. And he told him, I'm on TV. I talk about football. He goes, oh, you do? He goes, I played in the Super Bowl. You did, huh? He had no idea. So I was going to ask you, like the younger kids, they know your story.
Well, I asked them that question, and I asked them, "Do you know who I am?" And then they say, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you know me for negative or positive reasons?" And for the longest time, it's been for negative reasons. And this last year, I spoke at the Big Sky Conference kickoff, and I asked that question to all 24 athletes that were there. And for the first time that's ever happened, those that knew who I was and raised their hand for the positive aspect of things. And I think it goes to prove when you're speaking to these kids too, just breathe. Like, this too shall pass. That's the best way to put it. Like, you have a bad game, you respond negatively in a situation. You can overcome. You can get past it, and that's a great teacher. And I was in their shoes 27 years ago, right where they were at. Probably in a much better place because I was about to be the second pick in the NFL draft. So I know the answers to the test.
Yeah,
right. I know all the right answers, and I know all the wrong answers too. And so I want every one of them to be successful. And so that's what the speech is about: controlling the things that you can control, your attitude, your behavior, your effort, and then the relationships I've built with some of these guys. Like I spoke to Duke a few years ago, and Riley Leonard and I developed this relationship. We talked after every week of the college football playoff, just staying in touch, kind of talking about the things that we're going through.
And sort of you guys, I would imagine too, I can't speak for your passion for religion though, but he's a very religious person who hasn't done a lot of things you've done. Like you're polar opposites, basically.
Well, and
right?
it's exactly.
Yeah.
We're polar opposites. I'm pretty much kind of an atheist. I don't believe like in an omnipotent being. But I just know there's something greater than me out there.
Yeah.
Or otherwise I wouldn't
Clearly
still be here.
Yeah.
Where he's very self-effacing and forward with it, and it doesn't matter. We both get along just as well and just as great. So I'm really excited for him. He had a really great week last week.
So I was going to ask you about that actually, because every Senior Bowl, there's always a quarterback. Jake Haener a couple of years ago won the guys over, sort of wins the practice week. Daniel Jones got drafted pretty high because he had a really good Senior Bowl. Jackson Dart, there was a lot of talk about him. You just talked about Riley Leonard. What your take? What can you share about the quarterback class that a lot of people disparage before they've really been given a chance to prove themselves?
Yeah, and it's
right. This class sucks. How do you know? We're not even at the combine yet.
Yeah, no one can. I just can't get over too, like the idea of someone actually saying these great football players suck at anything. And it's funny. I think this is probably going to be a draft class when it comes to quarterbacks that's not going to be 6 first-round guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's necessarily a guy that actually has a first-round grade this year, to be honest with you. And that doesn't mean they're not going to get drafted in the first round, because general managers are living the constant fear of FOMO and missing out on the next big thing. And so this week was very important for the guys that were invited. Cam Ward declined, which I think was a huge mistake. He was going to have it to himself. His only competition is going to be Shedeur Sanders, and he doesn't show up either. Also, the Giants GM was there. The Giants offensive coordinator, the Tennessee offensive coordinator. Like, you had a chance to work for a week with the guys that you could be possibly working with if you want to be the first.
And the number one pick's up for grabs.
Yes, it's a huge part of it.
So if that was you would have been there.
Well, if I could have played in the Senior Bowl, they didn't accept juniors back then. Imagine being able to play that game, Peyton against me and that.
Oh, imagine the hype, huh?
Right?
It would have been.
How did the Senior Bowl not do that? Like, how do they know for marketing? Go, hey, we're going to let juniors in this year because we're gonna pit Peyton and Ryan together before they even get on the field in the pros.
What's your relationship like with Peyton Manning now?
It's wonderful.
After all these years.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. He's been a special person in my life. We've been connected since we were 20 years old. He wrote to me while I was in prison.
But he was there for you over the years.
Oh, he's always been. Him and his family. He invited me to his Hall of Fame induction, so I got to be a part of that. That was really special to see, because I know how hard it is to do what he did and to be so great. And then finally, we're both 48 years old. And ironically, you can compartmentalize with where things went right for him and wrong for me. But we're both 48 years old with 2 kids, a boy and a girl. We're both.
And most important, you're both happy in life.
That's all you get
I see you sitting here, whether it's a Super Bowl ring or not, whatever. And to me, bro, the same thing. Anybody that's been selected second in the NFL draft, you've already succeeded.
Yeah.
Like just point blank. Same with Jamarcus Russell. People, Jamarcus this. I wish I had Jamarcus Russell's career. Let's be real. People are just jackasses. We're just calling out what really is pick on the other side. We're kicking it live in New Orleans. We're throwing it down with the legend Ryan Leaf. And Ryan, before we get to your Super Bowl prediction and your breakdown of the game, Washington State. These guys just keep getting pushed down and getting back up. Pushed down, getting back up. losing quarterbacks, losing coaches, but it was a hell of a year this year in Pullman. I live in Vancouver, BC right now, so I get the Seattle
Times,
I get all the Seattle news coverage.
Yeah.
Follow the Huskies, follow the Cougars closely, but man, the Cougs, just a great year this year.
It was a great year for them. They beat the Huskies over in Seattle. They started off were as high ranked as 15th, and then unfortunately kind of took a swoon there at the end. They had a chance at the college football playoff as an independent.
Wild.
It was wild. But also through the process, Teresa Gould, the Pac-12 commissioner, steadfast, kept the brand, added more teams, and I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised when the media rights deal comes out here soon on what the Pac-12 brand still can garner when that's negotiated.
So, speaking of Washington State, everybody knows I'm a big Michigan Wolverine fan. I wasn't at the Rose Bowl that you guys played in. I was at the Rose Bowl last year against Alabama, but I know you played a lot of big games. I mean, your first game in the NFL, you played a lot of big games in your life, but this being Super Bowl week, I was thinking in your life, that was sort of, you're playing for the national championship essentially in a Rose Bowl in such a high-profile football game. Does the clock just tick faster in a big game when it's the last game, championship game? What's it like being a player in that moment?
It didn't. It felt like every other game. It wasn't for everybody else, though. There was you could tell.
Nerves got the best of some of your teammates.
My wide receivers all year long would come back to the huddle and say, "I'm open. I'm open. I'm open."
All the time, they tell you though. Yeah.
And in the first half of that football game, guys were coming back and pointing to like ST's open, like CJ's open.
The other guy's open because I ain't open.
But they were saying that, and it was so foreign, and I was just
almost defeatist right there.
And we had a few drops that normally wouldn't have occurred, and it was a well-fought game. That defense was incredibly special. We were a team that was averaging almost 50 points a game, and they held us to 16. Charles Woodson was on that team. He was the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. But no, once you play in front of, I don't care, 1,500 people, there's no difference between 1,500 and 110,000. It just doesn't. The field's the same size. It's the Gene Hackman part from Hoosiers when he measures everything and shows everybody and goes.
Goalpost to goalpost, there's the end zone, right?
Yeah, it was the same, and then we went to work. We really did in the second half, and it was a great football game, and I think a lot of Cougar fans out there still believe there's 2 seconds out there somewhere waiting for us.
So you have the last mile on here, and I sort of want to cross over. I'll talk about this on the way out as well. But everybody, life is about getting second chances. And not everybody's Patrick Mahomes is going to go to the Super Bowl every year. This is a second chance for Jalen Hurts. This is a second chance for the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni. They didn't have Saquon Barkley last time. This time they do. How much can you take from the last game? They're different teams right now, right? So what do you think about this matchup this time? And will Philadelphia be more comfortable, do you think, now this is their second Super Bowl in 3-4 years, et cetera?
Well, you go look at the roster, there are only a handful of guys that were on that team from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a huge roster, turnover in terms of things, where Kansas City has got guys that know what this is going to be like, know that little things like halftime's longer because of the big deal, and Kendrick Lamar is going to be here, so it's going to be a little bit longer. You got to learn that you just don't come in, sit down, kind of take a breather, get a coach's point, and then you go back to work. I mean, you're in there for a while. You're going to have to warm up differently and things like so having that knowledge is super important. I think Saquon's a difference maker, but I also think that if he could run for 200 yards and they still lose, that's what probably should have happened in the divisional round against the Rams. If they don't fumble a couple times, and that game's a total different monster. So I think it all comes down to Jalen Hurts. Period. His ability to get the ball out on time, in rhythm and accurately down the field, exactly how he did in the NFC Championship. He was spectacular, and so I think this is a great football game. I think they go head to head like they did 2 years ago. Bottom line is there's just no evidence out there, no proof anywhere that Kansas City can't and won't win this football game. There just isn't any proof to that exists anywhere.
Isn't it crazy though, Ryan? Like on paper, it seems time and time again the opponents are better.
Completely.
It's like, well, look at San Francisco defense, offensive line, defensive line, running backs, Buffalo Bills, right? Yep. So the Bills shoulda, coulda, woulda. They just find a way. 17 consecutive one-score victories, Ryan. That can't be by mistake. Or the referees, because everybody, what do you think about that?
That's the stupidest thing
everyone's,
I've
the
ever heard in
referees
my
are
life.
on the Chiefs' side, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, those are idiots. Those are people who are pissed because they didn't win their bets. I think that the bottom line is that they're the best team that exists. And when I say team, I'm talking about front office all the way down. There's not a better coach and quarterback combo that deals with end-of-the-game scenarios, time management, game management than what they do. And for whatever reason, people look at Kansas City and the fact that they win one-possession games as a weakness.
Yeah.
Why in
they don't blow anybody out.
Why
right?
in baseball and in basketball you win games by one possession or one run? That is unbelievable. That is a strength like nobody's business. But in football, no, you didn't win by enough. You only went 15-2. Didn't play.
Well, that's almost the betting aspect and the fantasy aspect, right? He's not a great fantasy player, so he's not a great player.
Yeah, and they don't care about stats. You saw what Kelsey did in the divisional round.
Is that what makes Mahomes? Sorry to jump in because I know we don't have a ton of time, but what makes Mahomes so great that he doesn't care about stats? Another thing is every year he has new wide receivers, or almost every month he has new wide receivers. Like a lot of teams, right? Like Joe Burrow's got his guys. Mahomes just makes people better. Isn't that the sign of a great player, great quarterback, that you make people better?
There's usually a concept that I invest in greatly, and that's players over plays. I just think it's different with Kansas City. I think it's plays over players. I think they got great players, don't get me wrong. I just think the scheme and everything is so good, and you have the best guy orchestrating that at quarterback, and they don't care. They just want the W. There's no pictures in the reunion book that shows what that win looked like. If it's ugly as hell, they don't care. It's a W.
A W is a W, so it sounds like you don't want to get in front of that Kansas City Chief train right now.
No, you don't. It's Kansas City 31-28. High scoring,
another close one.
Fun football game. Yep, I'm excited for it, though.
Ryan, it was a pleasure. Let's do this again sometime, man. It was awesome talking to you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Best of luck in the future. The Last Mile with Ryan Leaf.